Okay, guys, welcome back to Tips and Tactics. Here's the infamous spreadsheet that is used to determine all kinds of stuff. If you want to freeze the video and just look at all the different categories that they have here, different things that are covered in this, it's just an insanely valuable spreadsheet. A lot of this stuff has probably changed with updates, but a lot of it stayed the same because it's just solid algorithms that make sense, so have stayed within the game. This is one of the algorithms that has stayed in the game. So you may have heard people say, hey, run in groups of 5 because they're most effective in groups of 5 of infantry. Let me just talk to you about what they're talking about. So I'm going to put this Google spreadsheet address in the description below, so you don't have to sit here and freeze it and write all these stupid letters down. You can copy and paste it from the description of this video. Let's go ahead and zoom in to see what's going on here a little bit better. All right, so what this is saying is that the difference, the amount of damage is the blue bar. So when you have one unit here, you have one unit amount worth of damage, in this case 1.2. This is if you have 100% morale, so it's assuming that you have 100% morale. Infantry attack at 1.2, so there's 1.2. When you add, and this is how much it increased over 0. Well, it increased 1.2 from 0 to 1.2, right? So once you have 2, it increased up to 2.4. How much did it increase? That's the red amount. Well, it increased from the last time. It increased 1.2 again. So when you go on, now you're up to 3.6. How much did it increase? 1.2. You might ask, like, well, what's the point of these little red bars? It's showing you that it's increasing the same amount each time all the way up to 5. Once you get to 5, let me just draw a line here. Once you get to 5 here, you should be at 6, right? 5 times 1.2 is 6. Let's go ahead and mark out our baseline for when we had 0, like so. Okay, so keep in mind, between 0 and 5 units, our power went up 6 amounts, right? 6 units. Okay, let's see what happens over the next 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is not going to be perfect or fine-tuned. I'm just going to do my best to draw a straight line over and give you a rough idea of what's going on here. Obviously, this is like 1/3 of the increase, really, if even that. So when people say run in groups of 5, this is what they're talking about. They're saying that as soon as you add 5 more, you're decreasing the effectiveness of every additional troop you add. So you can think of that as these red points are how much power the extra troop got. And you can see it goes down for a while now. Let's go ahead and look at 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And again, we'll draw our rough line. This is by no means perfect or exact. We'll just draw a rough line over here. And it looks like for these, it increases the same amount. And we can see by these little blips that it looks like it's increasing by the same amount. But now let's see what happens when we go beyond 15. Okay, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now, the increase of those extra 5 troops was less than 1 unit. I'll be so bold as to say maybe a half power. So you added 5 troops, and they went in and gave you maybe a half point of power. Okay, so this is what people are talking about. And then that's going to continue for quite some time here. I believe it continues at that same rate of increase all the way to 40. So let's look at this, 20 to 40. The next 20 troops that you add to your stack are going to give you, in total, it looks like another maybe 2.5 points of power for that next 20. I mean, wow. Certainly what we can say with clarity is that the difference between 15 troops and 40 troops is a clear-cut 5 points from 10. No, not 5 points. Yeah, 5. No, that's not 5 points. Lord have mercy. Yeah, that's 2.5 points. I'm reading my y-axis wrong. I apologize. So the difference between 15 units and 40 units is 2.5 in attack power. Anything over 50, you might as well not throw anybody in the stack at all. They don't add any additional power to your stack. All right, so let's talk about what that means. Does that mean you should not send in stacks of 50 or 60. That's up to you. It really is. Because here's the thing, you have more hit points. If you send in 50, you've got 50 guys. And if, for instance, they're going to kill 10 of your guys per round, then you've got 40 guys at the end of that round, and then 30, and then 20. And so, even though you're only doing, 12.5 and then, whatever, it's getting reduced, you have a lot more hit points. So that's one reason you might want to have a big stack. Another reason you might want to have a big stack is if you've got cannon buried in here. A lot of times you'll be defending a fort and somebody comes in with cannon and infantry and they start raining in on you, and you can't leave the fort with your cannon because then their cannon would be out of range and you'd be leaving your fort in range of their cannon. So you've got to leave your cannon in your fort. By the way, the first thing you should do is run out a few guys so that they can't bum rush your fort. As you know, as soon as anybody engages your cannon in melee combat, your cannon are useless. So, run some guys out. But my point is, inside that fort with your cannon, you're best off having as many infantry with you as you can as meat shields. Now, the sad thing about that is there's no guarantee that your infantry will die before your cannon. So I've had a stack of like 50 infantry and 4 cannon and then lost a cannon, like lost maybe 5 infantry and a cannon. So it's all randomized. There's no protection guaranteed, it's very, very random when it comes to that sort of damage. And it kind of makes sense. It's like, well, if your cannons can reach them and their cannons, then their cannons can reach you and your cannons. And so it's kind of a random game there. But obviously, if you know anything about statistics, the more infantry you have in a stack, the less chance it is that randomly that one cannon will be selected. So what does this say to you? I mean, well, it says to you that the person who says send in 5 is right. Send in 5, you'll have a power of 6. Then send in another 5, you'll have a power of 12, which is all the way up here somewhere, right? And then send in another 5, and you'll have a power of 18, which is off the charts, right? Up here somewhere is 18. So that's just with 15 guys. 15 guys, which is right here on this sort of configuration. I was going to say conflagration, and that doesn't make any sense at all. But anyway, so can you see what I'm talking about here? If you send in the 15 together, here's your power level right here. If you send them in 5 at a time, here's your power level all the way up here. Now, here's a big problem, and that is that what I'm not sure about, and I'd like to have answered, is does every arriving stack of 5 attack as soon as they arrive? Or do they join the army that's already there? I know they join the army that's already there. It stacks, it becomes 10, then 15 or whatever. My question is, do they attack when they first arrive, which would be great because they'd attack at that 6? Or do they just join the army and attack the next round that army attacks? In which case, there's really not much point in running them in 5 at a time unless you let them all die and then run in another 5. And then let them all die and then run in another 5, if you see what I'm saying. So there is some complexity here. Again, if anybody knows the answer to that, I would love to hear the answer. I've actually done that. I've done that with groups of 10 because I'm okay with the reduction between 5 and 10. It's bad, but it's not horrible, right? I mean, between 5 and 10, oh, here we are. Between 5 and 10, you still have 7.5, 7.6 or something. I don't know. I don't want to do the math. I'm lazy. But I usually send in stacks of 10 and then just do something else, while they're attacking, and then let them die out and then send in another stack of 10. That honestly might be better than just sending in a stack of 50, because you're not getting the most bang for your buck for each of those fighters. If you send in stacks of 5, like some people suggest, let them die, stacks of 5, let them die, then what you're essentially doing is attacking at 6 every round, and you're only losing 5 every round, no matter how many people they have in their group. So I would just say that's a great idea. But the main thing is, all those details aside, this is what I wanted you to see. When people say attack with stacks of 5, this is what they're talking about. And I actually really love this mechanic because there's only so many people that can fit on a battlefield and can effectively attack another army when you're talking about infantry. Right? It's not infinite. You can't have, and by the way, I assume each of these 50 mean 50 units, right? That's not 50 guys. We often talk about it that way, but that's 50 units, so each unit could have 100 people in it. I'm not really sure if anybody's actually come up with that calculus or not. To me, it's kind of doesn't really matter. But this is what's going on. At a certain point, those guys are just further back. They can't be as effective with their weaponry. So the first 5 units, they're on the front. They can inflict the most damage. The next, 10 units are going to be behind and to the side, and they can inflict sequentially less damage. And then once you start sacking more and more people, but once you get beyond, 4,000 or whatever that number is, 40 units, whatever a unit is, then beyond that, these guys are just waiting in the back to shuffle forward. They're not fighting at all. Now, that's not a bad thing, as we've talked about. If you want to just have them there as reserves, and they'll just move to the front of the line each turn, and that way you can absorb a lot of damage, that's up to you. That's your call. But there is sort of this sense that a lot of these guys in the middle are not inflicting the maximum damage they can. So it's going to be up to you as you play this game. If there's situations, like for instance, if you've got 10 guys and they've got, say, 7 guys, and there's no forts, it's all just you want to go take that territory. How should you do it? What's the best way to do it? In my opinion, the best way to do it is attack with 5 guys. They'll have the maximum attack damage, and hopefully they'll take out, as you go back and forth and attack back and forth, of those 7 guys, hopefully you'll take out, say, 4, right? So that then there'll be 3 left, and then you'll attack with your other 5, and then you'll go back and forth. You'll defeat them, but you'll be at maximum strength, which means you'll inflict the most damage each time, which does mean in turn that you'll suffer fewer losses at those small numbers. Because more of them will die, then less of them will live to inflict damage back on you later. So there's a lot of interesting scenarios. I leave it up to you, but this is the raw data. I'm going to continue to sort of share some of this stuff with you here in Tips and Tactics, some of this game mechanics stuff. But if you don't really appreciate this, you either don't care, you already know it, or it's just something that you'd rather just have someone tell you, hey, send them in 5 at a time, unless, you need a lot of meat shields, then send them, whatever. That's fine too. Like, this isn't everybody's sort of cup of tea, but if you like it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put mechanics in the tagline. So we'll be talking about mechanics specifically. And if you're interested in those detailed mechanics, then you'll know under tips and tactics, if you see the word mechanics, then you'll jump in there. All right. So thanks for checking in, guys. As always, happy to talk to you guys, and sorry about the length of this video, but in the future also, if you start a video and it has these graphs on it and you're like, nope, or these tables, and you don't want to dive deep, go down that rabbit hole of numbers and math, then just stop the video and like it, and then move on to the next one. So all right, guys, thanks for checking in. I'll see y'all next time. Adios, amigos.